good evening. I'm Melisa Idris. Welcome to Consider This. This is the show where we want you to consider and then reconsider what you know of the news of the day. It's been a little over a week since the ceasefire deal between Israel and Hamas has gone into effect in Gaza. But as displaced Palestinians prepare to return to homes that may no longer exist, aid agencies are racing to provide vital humanitarian assistance that was denied entry into Gaza for so long. So joining us on the show now is Datuk Dr. Ahmad Faizal Perdaus, President of MERCY Malaysia, to tell us a little bit about the organization's efforts in Gaza today. Dr. Faizal, thank you for being on the show with me. How has MERCY Malaysia responded to the ceasefire? What has been kind of the immediate actions once we knew the ceasefire was going into effect?
Thank you, Melissa, and thank you again for inviting us to be on the show. First and foremost, MERCY Malaysia, as with some of the other major international non-governmental organizations delivering humanitarian aid into Gaza, anticipated the ceasefire about 10 days before it actually happened, because our inside information from the UN as well as from the US and Qatar indicated that the ceasefire was happening this time. To cut a long story short, we had made preparations about a week before the ceasefire happened, and had plans drawn up. So that's number one. Secondly, we anticipated that some, if not all, of the crossings will be reopened for humanitarian aid items. Items first, not people. And we were correct in that even on the first day of the ceasefire, we actually saw a dramatic increase in the number of aid trucks being allowed in. And up to date, there are now more than 850 trucks per day being allowed in, mostly through Karim Abu Salam, the crossing that Israel controls even before the war, which one has to go through Jordan to get through easily. And secondly is through the Rafah crossing. The Rafah crossing has been open, but has been limited in its opening thus far. We hope it will be open further. And MERCY Malaysia, therefore, has planned and has already in the process of sending aid through trucks. In fact, one is scheduled to go in on the 28th, and further ones will go in later. At the moment, we're concentrating on the route from Jordan and through some parts of Israel through the Karim Abu Salam, Kerem Shalom in Hebrew, crossing. And we are also sending another team. One team is already in Jordan doing that. We are also sending another team to Egypt once the Rafah crossing is fully open. That's number one. The second is the humanitarian situation, of course, is dire, and the needs are great. Our partners and ourselves are looking at both food, water, clean water, drinkable water, but also shelters at the moment. Although shelters are a bit slower to come by, temporary shelters, not yet the rebuilding in this first phase of the ceasefire. And secondly, we're also looking at increasing the capacity of the Palestinians in Gaza themselves to actually have more cooked food, etc. And so there is now discussions on how to increase that capacity. Thirdly, we must not forget this, is the medical aid. So there are thousands and thousands, more than 100,000 definitely, of people who've been injured. Some have been treated, some have not been treated fully. So together with WHO, UNICEF, and other related agencies, UNRWA, etc., we're also looking at delivering medical aid, both in terms of drugs, medication, but also in terms of medical equipment and disposable items, for the clinics and the hospitals to use. Of course, as we all know, some of the hospitals in the Gaza Strip have been badly hit by the Israeli occupation forces. Some of them are barely functioning. However, organizations like MERCY Malaysia also have, in anticipation of that happening earlier on, have got what we call medical points, which are, in essence, big health centers, not amounting to a hospital, but bigger than ordinary clinics. So MERCY Malaysia has one in Al-Mawasi, for example. There are other NGOs, INGOs, who also have other medical points. So these are the focal points at the moment, apart from some of the hospitals like Al-Auda, in Dar al-Balah, etc., which are still functioning. Kamal
Right.
Adwan, Ashifa, unfortunately, are not functioning well. And so rehabilitation of these hospitals, not yet rebuilding, but rehabilitation of these hospitals will also come to the fore. And fourthly, before I end, not to forget, and both WHO and UNICEF have already come up with statements to this regard, which is the mental health of people in Gaza have been so badly affected. While while the physical needs are great and should be given priority, like health, like food, like water, like sanitation, there is a need for mental health psychosocial support, especially for children, to be given sooner than later, i.e., within this first phase. Now, that is before the second phase, whereby things like education, better sanitation facilities, better pipe water facilities will be looked into. But even in this first phase of the ceasefire, mental health psychosocial support, at least the basic ones, also needs to be given. And MERCY Malaysia has also propositioned that in our plans.
Right. You mentioned a few places just now, but maybe you can help us better understand where exactly aid is going. We understand that, you know, the north of Gaza has not received aid in many months, and famine is a real reality for many Palestinians there. How do we know where the aid is going? Are you keeping track, or are there logistical challenges in ensuring that aid is dispersed to who needs it the most?
There are still logistical challenges, definitely. The only two things have changed. Yeah, one is that there have been definitely less ransacking and pilfering, as well as disorderly conduct around and with aid convoys among the Palestinians themselves, which before this was an issue, because to be honest, they're desperate. Yeah?
Desperate.
They're desperate. So that has not happened since the ceasefire, and that's good. Yeah, that's good. So that's number one. Most of the aid is still hampered logistically because of the roads and the roadways and the rubble, etc. But at least the ransacking, pilfering is a lot less. Now there are areas, of course, which are still not very passable for big trucks, so they have to unload for the aid to be then transferred to smaller vehicles, to go through. So that is still a logistical challenge. So there might be some challenges in some areas to get through, and of course it also takes a longer time because of the impassable roadways and streets because of the rubble. Some of the aid convoys have to take turns, have to take both U-turns as well as real taking turns. In essence, before they can get to their destination. So that means people are getting their aid slower. But of course, you know, for the people of Gaza, this is a lot better than before, so better than nothing. Now, the third bit is the north. Yeah, now until today, actually, today is Monday, so it's just morning now in Gaza. Yeah, so the Israelis, of course, over the weekend gave the excuse of not opening and not allowing Gazans, Palestinians, to actually go back to the north, Beit Lahia, Beit Hanun, Jabalia, etc. North of the Netzarim corridor, a corridor which they artificially made and populate with watchtowers and with military outposts across the Gaza Strip, dividing the Gaza Strip, part of Gaza City and these northern suburbs, northern areas from the south and central areas. That's because they wanted to focus most of their firepower initially in the war on the north, and until today they had prohibited Gazans from going back and from opening the northern part of Gaza to both Palestinians and also to Palestinians who are still trapped there with aid. So aid is going through the north over the last week or so, the last 5 days or so, better than it was before the ceasefire, but still not optimal. We hope that today, and the good news is the Israelis have agreed once the Palestinian Islamic Jihad, the faction that's holding the female civilian Abil Yahud, had declared that they will be transferring her before this Saturday, back to Israeli care. once that hostage's release has been guaranteed, the Israelis had agreed to open the north today and to allow Palestinians and aid to go through. So we will see what happens, Melisa. It's today, Monday, so we'll see how that goes. Because of course, things can happen and things can change. Yeah.
Well, it's still a very fragile situation at the moment. We've heard over the weekend, Trump making comments about it's time to, if I would use his term, to quote him, to clean out the Gaza Strip, urging leaders of Jordan and Egypt to take Palestinians who are displaced in Gaza, either temporarily or permanently. I wanted to ask how that is impacting aid work. Are your partners, or are the international and local actors, how are they receiving news of Trump saying things like this?
Right. In the first instance, I would like to say that that has not been very well received. Yeah, it's been received quite negatively and apprehensively by all, by both aid organizations, by the UN system even, and also by the Red Cross movement, but also, of course, by the Palestinians themselves. That's number one. Number two, before I answer how it's affecting the aid, etc., is also that I hope this also gives a more realistic view to some people. Yeah, I know we are overjoyed, and we rightfully should be, for the Palestinians in Gaza, that the 15-month conflict has come to a ceasefire at last. Yeah, and we are grateful for that. Yeah, and we are grateful to both the previous U.S. administration's team, Biden's team, as well as Trump's team, including his ambassador designate Steve Witkoff, who apparently played a major role in getting this ceasefire through. But I hope people will also realize now that it's not all in dreamland, yes, and it's not all good and all smooth sailing from now on. Perhaps there were also other compromises that we don't know about, that were made behind the scenes. So we have to be vigilant. So this is what I have to say. Now, going to the aid issue, at the moment, no, it's not impeding aid per se yet, because apart from the extreme right wing in Israel, so we've had statements of support for this rhetoric from President Trump, from the right wing of Israeli politics, from Bezalel Smotrich, from Itamar Ben-Gvir and others who welcome it, but there's been very little positive note otherwise, So at the moment, it's not impeding it yet. The Israelis are still holding on to their commitments to the ceasefire, phase one of the ceasefire as of today, So aid is still going through, and so there's not been much impact yet. However, we sincerely hope that there is no such move taken, and no other moves leading to this rhetoric that will be taken by any side. So number one, it's basically very much against international humanitarian law. International law. Any such movement will be equivalent to, any such displacement will be equivalent to ethnic cleansing, and that is by itself a crime against humanity. And ethnic cleansing also is one of the reasons why a genocide can be declared. So that's number one. Number two, I think from a practical perspective, from a pure practical perspective, we forget the politics for a while. We don't see, as humanitarians at least, don't see how this displacement can happen without force being applied, and therefore without another war breaking out. Right. Because and will increase more suffering all around, not just for the Palestinians, but perhaps for the Israelis as well. Because practically, Jordan, for example, one of the countries that President Trump is suggesting take in more Palestinians, is definitely not in a position to do so practically. They already host Palestinians. They also host Syrians who have not gone back yet to their country after the end of their civil war. So there's no way Jordan can take them. Egypt, people can argue whether they have the capacity to take or not. But again, the question is, Egypt also is not in the best of economic situations to take more people in.
But I'm sure Palestinians themselves to go home as well.
Yeah, and that is exactly it, which is politically, both internally among the Palestinians, there is no positive reception to this at all. All the reception has been negative. And so, again, politically inside, no Palestinian body or political party or movement, be it Hamas, be it Palestine Islamic Jihad, be it the PLO, Fatah, will dare agree to this decision, and no Palestinians will want to. So this is also impossible to carry out, and the rhetoric, or rather the replies from the region, has also been negative. So I think Jordan definitely has said something. Qatar has also said something, and Saudi Arabia as well. So no one is agreeing to this. So if it is forced upon the Palestinians, it will cause more humanitarian catastrophe.
Hi, welcome back to Consider This. I'm Melisa Idris. Let's continue our conversation tonight about the situation in Gaza. This is just a little over a week since the ceasefire deal came into effect. Tonight we're speaking to aid agencies about their immediate priorities under the ceasefire and the Herculean task of rebuilding Gaza. Joining us now is Datuk Dr. Ahmad Faizal Perdaus, President of MERCY Malaysia. Dr. Faizal, just before the break, we were talking about the fragility of this ceasefire deal and how things can change even on a daily basis. I do want to ask you, are you optimistic that we will see this next 6 weeks of peace, a pause in fighting, and even the second and third phases materialize under the ceasefire deal?
Right. First of all, I must say two things. One is what we hope for, and the other is what we anticipate. So for aid agencies, we have to do both in this type of situation. So what we hope for is that the ceasefire will hold, not just the first phase, but the second phase and the third phase as well. At the moment, our hopes are quite high. Given the fact that the main guarantor of the ceasefire, which is the United States, the world's only real superpower at the moment, is also keen to see it happen. So that is at least until we see whether there are any negative repercussions of President Trump's earlier comments on clearing out Gaza. But otherwise, the US seems to be keen. Also, the Israeli public appetite also seems to be much in favor of a ceasefire. In fact, you could argue that a substantial number of Israelis, as shown by the number of protests and protesters who turn up every day, in Tel Aviv, for example, show that there is a big push for a ceasefire even within Israel. And thirdly, of course, the Palestinians, for all their steadfastness, also really also truly need a breather from the fighting, and I think the military wing of Hamas also recognizes that. So from the overall push and pull perspective, I think we are good for the first 6 weeks, and barring any major incident or major action that we hope will not happen, for example, as a result of President Trump's earlier remarks on clearing out Gaza, and that remains just rhetoric. We are hopeful that the first 6 weeks will hold. Now, after that is the big question mark, because there are issues within Israel, and there is pressure from some quarters within Israel to continue the war after the first phase. That's number one. Number two is also whether the amount of aid that is allowed in will be sufficient in phase one. We hope it will be. And we hope the crossings, not just Kerem Shalom, but also Rafah, will be fully open soon. If it's fully open, if Rafah fully opens, we can go beyond 1,000 trucks a day, and that will be good. for the humanitarian situation. And then we think, we hope, and we hope there will be no desire from the Palestinian side to also resume hostilities. Yeah. Now, that's the hope. The reality, however, on the ground is that in situations like this, unfortunately or fortunately, depending on your perspective, just a small incident can light a fire, and that incident can be in three ways. Number one, in the field, in Gaza itself, where battles have been fought before. Yeah, although we are hopeful because a large number of the Israeli troops have been withdrawn, although not all of them. And we hope with the opening of the north, which is supposed to happen today, the north of Gaza, Monday, the 27th, we hope that the Netzarim corridor will also be slowly, gradually, as in the ceasefire agreement,
Dr. Faizal,
be emptied. Yeah.
before the genocide, before the war, where was Mercy using as a crossing? Where did you transport aid into Gaza? Which crossing did you use? Was it the Rafah crossing or the Karim Abdul Salam crossing?
Most aid agencies, including MERCY Malaysia, use the Rafah crossing because it was the more convenient one. Karim Abu Salam was a bit more difficult. So it was always Rafah first and Karim Abu Salam second. The second point, of course, for us Malaysians, it was very much easier to go through Egypt to get clearance from there than to go through Jordan, which means that we would have to go through Israel, and that would need special permission. Of course, MERCY Malaysia, being a partner of WHO and the UN, has that little bit of advantage. We can actually go through Jordan, through Karim Abu Salam, under UN auspices for our aid items. But again, it was much easier through Rafah. So the second and third points on how this might unravel is, of course, incidents not necessarily only happen in Gaza. They can also happen, for example, outside of Gaza. For example, if there was an attack in Israel, yeah. Although we hope that will not happen again, and we see again, like I said, the Palestinian armed factions will hold their guns here, yeah. And the third, of course, is again, if there are extraneous and unnecessary, uncalled for, and wrong political pressure that will come about, as a result of not so well received and not so well thought of statements by leaders, like what we just saw recently with President Trump's rhetoric on emptying Gaza. We hope these statements will not be repeated, because these statements have the potential of inflaming sentiment, and this might cause the whole peace process, the whole ceasefire to unravel. We hope that this will not happen, but these are the real scenarios.
How do you, as an aid agency, plan and prepare for that? You talked about how you anticipated the ceasefire was going to take into effect maybe 10 days before, but given all the moving parts, the fragility of this deal, how do aid agencies like Mercy prepare or think about preparing for aid, not just for the emergency aid, but maybe in hopes of rebuilding Gaza in the later stages?
Well, it has different stages to it, but also a few key points. Yeah. So the few key points are, number one, we have to have proximity to the crisis. So proximity means while the modern world has enabled us, and information communication technology has enabled us, for example, to have this online talk show, and we do have a lot of online meetings nowadays rather than physical ones. But proximity to any crisis, not just Gaza, is a must for aid agencies to get first-hand information, to get the feel on the ground as much as possible. So MERCY has still got local staff inside Gaza, and like I said, we now have a team in Jordan, and we are also preparing to reassemble our team in Egypt, which we had before Rafah was closed. That's number one, proximity. Second is forward planning. Yeah, and forward planning will have to have stages in them. Just like the ceasefire, we also have phases and stages to the planning. Phase 1, phase 2, phase 3, And then we have different scenarios as to if the ceasefire holds, if the ceasefire is breached but not broken, yeah, and then if the ceasefire is broken and war breaks out, yeah. So we have to have emergency as well as contingency plans for all of those. Thirdly, is we have to do good stakeholder engagement. And this one is both for our local as well as international partners and donors. We have to tell them how we are prepared and how we are constantly preparing. So with WHO MTCC, for example, we are in constant contact to see when, if, should the situation arises that it is feasible to send more medical teams from outside, for example. This is just an example. So and last but not least is of course preparing our own teams, our own people, with all these possible scenarios. So anyone who is going on mission, for example, to Jordan or Egypt, is briefed properly. And also, if there are teams that are being planned to go inside Gaza, they will not just have to be briefed properly, but also to be prepared mentally and physically for the challenges ahead. So while WHO might say you can send someone now inside, that someone must be prepared for any eventuality in case there is a break in the ceasefire and plans go awry and dates for retrieval or evacuation will have to be adjusted. Yeah.
Faizal, thank you so much for your time. That was Datuk Dr. Faizal Muhammad Perdaus from MERCY Malaysia, wrapping up this episode of Consider This. I'm Melisa Idris, signing off for the evening. Thank you so much for watching. Good night.